Tel Aviv terror attack, while the manhunt after the assailant or assailants of the deadly Jordan Valley attack still underway. 35-year-old Italian tourist Alessandro Parini was murdered and 7 other tourists injured when a Palestinian terrorist rammed his car on the Tel Aviv beachfront Friday night. Parini was the 3rd person murdered on Friday alone. Earlier in the day, 2 Israeli sisters were killed in a shooting attack near the village of Hamra in the Jordan Valley. Their mother still in hospital fighting for her life. All of this coming on the back of 72 hours of heavy barrages of rockets fired at Israel from the Gaza Strip and from Lebanon. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant instructing this hour the reinforcement of IDF forces in the Central District Command of Police and extended the general closure on the West Bank and the Gaza Strip until the end of the holiday of Passover later on this week. This ahead of a security cabinet meeting tomorrow morning. Also this evening, the 14th week of protests against the Israeli government's pending judicial overhaul. You're seeing now live images on the screen from the main rally in Tel Aviv. Police urging protesters not to block any roads due to the security escalation. We will be taking you live there later on in the broadcast, but before we begin to unpack it all, here's a recap of these turbulent, somber days of the holiday of Passover.
It's been an extraordinarily bloody week in Israel and the West Bank, culminating in a deadly terrorist attack in Tel Aviv Friday night on the popular beachfront. A Palestinian man rammed his car into a group of tourists, killing 35-year-old Italian citizen Alessandro Parini and injuring 7 other victims.
We were right across the street.
Right across the street, maybe 100 meters over.
And what did you see? How do you...
We heard
gunfire. We saw shots, and then we saw people sprinting across the street, and then we heard sirens, and we decided it was time to get out of here.
Yeah.
This is a tragedy which we share together with Israel, and the solidarity and the feelings of sorrow that we received in those hours, they are outstanding.
The attacker, an Arab Israeli from the village of Kfar Qasim, was neutralized at the scene. Earlier the same day in the West Bank, 2 sisters aged 16 and 20 with dual British-Israeli citizenship were killed in a separate shooting attack. Their mother was seriously wounded and was still in hospital by Saturday evening. Friday's attacks took place after escalating violence on the ground between Palestinians and Israeli police, who raided Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque earlier in the week, sparking a response from the Palestinian group Hamas, firing rockets from the Gaza Strip and subsequently from southern Lebanon into Israel. The IDF responded with military airstrikes. Following the rise in attacks, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered border police reserve units to be drafted on Sunday morning.
It is only a matter of time, and not much time, that we will hold them accountable, as we did with all the murderers, without exception, in the last months.
Attacks by Palestinians have killed 18 people since the beginning of the year. For months, Israel has conducted near-nightly raids in the West Bank as part of counter-terrorism operations, killing and injuring dozens of Palestinians.
And this evening, the Hadassah and Karim Hospital in Jerusalem updating that doctors are still fighting for the life of the mother who was critically injured in the Jordan Valley attack, where her 2 daughters were killed short moments ago. Also an update from Professor Ronnie Gamzu, the head of the Ichilov Medical Center here in Tel Aviv, on the status of several injured in the terror attack. And speaking this hour alongside Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen. Let's take a quick listen.
From the event, 3 of them went to surgeries. Most of that was focused on orthopedic surgeries in order to treat the fractures, complex fractures that were involved. All of them are in a good condition now. All of them now are recovering gradually. They are most in the orthopedic department, and they will go through rehabilitation in the next few days.
On behalf of the government and the people of Israel, I send our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Alessandro Parini, the Italian citizen who was murdered in yesterday's terror attack in Tel Aviv, and to the government and the people of Italy. murderous terrorism is the enemy of us all. I also send our wishes for a speedy recovery to the injuries.
And joining us now in studio, Mr. Ben-Dror Yemini, senior journalist at the Yediot Ahronoth Daily and Major General in the Reserves, Mr. Itan Dangot, former military secretary to 3 ministers of defense and former coordinator of government activities in the Palestinian territories. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for joining us on this packed evening, let's put it that way. And Major General Dangot, I do want to begin with you. We've just been reporting on the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant reinforcing police forces with IDF forces. How unusual is that?
It's something that not surprising, because it has been done already in the past. When you are coming to a stage that you have to add or to increase the deployment of security, police and military people under the command of the police, because the military service is not responsible for what's going interior in Israel. You need, in what's happening now in Israel, a lot of security forces which will be deployed and will bring two things. First, self-confidence to the civilian people on their regular life, and I think the state is calling to people to continue in their normal life as they can do more. Secondly, as more as security people are deployed in the streets, in areas that are sensitive, it can bring reaction under terror attack immediately in seconds, while it's the golden seconds that you need to stop the terror attack and to arrest or to kill, and in such a way, those who are trying to kill the others. So it's something that has been done. I think in calculation, it came to a conclusion that we need more forces in the central part of Israel. So it's coming also to the part of the army to send soldiers to aid and to strengthen the police presentation. Also tonight there are also demonstrations.
Yes.
It's a lot of people, so you need to increase it. But everything is under the umbrella of the multi-arena terror clash that we have around us. And as such as more battalions are coming to the West Bank as one part. Secondly, it's East Jerusalem, which many police professional units are there. The third is interiorly in Israel, what we discussed right now. You have the deployment towards the Lebanon border. The fifth one is towards the Gaza. So it's sharing, and I can tell you that the police, that the security forces, IDF, interior security and the police are well prepared for the continuating, but it's not easy. It's something that will take at least 1.5 months from now.
Multi-level threats that all necessitates obviously a different type of reaction, and we'll unpack it further right after the break. But before we do take a break, Mr. Ben-Dror Yemini, we've just heard part of the international condemnation. Do you identify any deviation from the quote-unquote standard pattern here due to the identity of the victims?
Yeah, probably, because it's Italian citizens, so the West countries commenting, reacting, condemning, of course. But we do have to remember that many of them do not like the current government in Israel. Yeah. We have to remember it. I mean, it will not be nice to say, well, maybe it's better that it was a foreign citizen. No, it's not better, I mean, because we don't want anybody, of course, to be killed. And in this place, by the way, which is just next to my house, 3 minutes away, I'm walking almost every day, I mean, my daily walk. And so many Arabs are walking in the very same place that just yesterday the Italian guy was killed. Let's remember it. I mean, so
yeah, the civilian lives here are profoundly intertwined, living together side by side, literally. We're taking a short break, but we continue to unpack it all right after 2 minutes, and we're back.
Organism that pulsates through millennia. Touch it. Listen to it. Smell it. Taste it. Experience the Holy Land like never before. Holy Land Uncovered, every Sunday, only on I-24 News.
Imagine being able to see into the future.
What innovations will change the world as we know it? Join us as we meet the people changing our planet and discover the inventions shaping tomorrow.
Israel Business Beat, Sundays and Wednesdays, 9:30 p.m. GMT.
The I-24 News team of talented correspondents are working hard for you. They're in the markets, on the... Tune in for Beyond the Headlines to see how the top stories of the week are affecting real people. No commentary, no debate, just the best stories presented by our best journalists.
We're on the inside of political and religious passions in Jerusalem, breaking down the financial trends shaping the global economy, giving you key context, not just headlines, with the stories from Israel that touch the U.S. and those across the region with impact far beyond its borders. Catch the rundown where the Middle East meets the world.
Welcome back to the special I-24 News edition as Israel is facing a massive terror wave on multiple fronts. And now, against the backdrop of this tense security situation, protesters are taking to the streets of Israel once again for the 14th week in a row. Demonstration of the pending judicial overhaul. The crowds begin already amassing, actually, at the main rally in Tel Aviv. You're seeing now live images on the screen as organizers accepted police pleas to cancel a march through the city streets due to the security concerns. Our I-24 News correspondent Hamda Salahut is there. Hamda, we're seeing the masses very much in attendance, but as mentioned, agreeing to keep it contained in terms of the location because of the security and the security situation.
Good evening. While this might not look like a subdued protest, it is in the fact that it is not a march that will close off any roads. Protesters will not head to the Ayalon Highway to block it. This is the 14th week in a row demonstrators are taking to the streets against the government's planned judicial overhaul. While Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did pause those bills last week in hopes of negotiations with the opposition, demonstrators here are saying that is simply not enough and that they must be taken off the table completely. I have a demonstrator here with me. Her name is Norit. She's from Tel Aviv. Norit, thank you so much for being with us. Talk to us about why it's so important for you to be here 14 weeks later.
I was born before the independent war, and from that time I live in a free country with law, without constitution, but under law. And as you see my sign, it's written here.
You can point it this way to show.
No democracy with occupation. And I think this is the main problem of Israel. In addition, we don't agree to the new government that is going to take our freedom. All sorts of people. Therefore, I'm here 14 weeks. Week after week, okay? And my age is 78.
Norit, thank you so much for being with us. You can see here a lot of people, all ages. We spoke to women with their children who brought them here, and the children were saying that it's important for democracy. The mothers of those children saying it's for the future generation of this country, that while negotiations are ongoing for these bills, it is not acceptable to them. Protest organizers are also saying that this comes amid the backdrop of the heavy security situation, but instead of the government focusing on that, they are instead focusing on advancing introducing these judicial overhaul bills after the government's recess, which began, on April 2nd. Ellie.
Yes, Act 24 News senior correspondent Hamda Salhout from the terror scene in Tel Aviv to the main rally in Tel Aviv following every development on the streets there. Hamda, thank you very much for this. Back here in studio, Ben-Dror Yemini, senior journalist of the Yediot Ahronoth Daily, Major General on the reserves, Mr. Eitan Dangot. Ben-Dror, the protesters are saying we're not gathering today despite the security situation, but because of it.
Too many people want to make the connection between our situation, whatever is happening with the terror wave that we are facing right now, and the judicial reform. Let me tell you, I participated in some demonstrations. I'm against this kind of judicial reform. Not this one. I don't like it. I demonstrated. But to make a connection between the wave of terror and the demonstration and the protest, which is highly justified, it's not the right thing to do. It's not the right thing to do because, let's remember, I mean, the big success of the protest is because so many people who are identified with the right actually joined the protest. I mean, that's what happened actually, mainly in the last 2-3 weeks. Now, to say occupation and to say terror and to blame this government because of the wave of terror, it will be the most counterproductive step on behalf of the protest. It should not be done. And let's remember one thing, which must be said. I mean, it is nothing. I mean, of course, I do not support this government. I said it in this table not one time. But the point is that we cannot forget the fact that even when we had the most peaceful government, Ehud Barak and Yossi Beilin and Yossi Sarid and others, who offered the Palestinians a Palestinian state and the partition of Jerusalem, they were rejected by the Palestinians. Let's not forget it. So. We have good claims against this government. Let's not mix between terror and the judicial reform. That's all.
And speaking of connections or disconnections, Major General Dangot, for a while now, the Israeli perception, if you will, or strategy, was to try and make a distinction between the different fronts. As in, you have the Gaza Strip, you have the Northern Front, you have Jerusalem, you have the West Bank, and slowly but surely, and not so slowly, but definitely surely, we're seeing this notion simply collapsing. Maybe it is up to Israel now to connect anew these arenas and set up a new strategy here.
I think that both of your two ways that you just present are right, but at the end you have to calculate your reaction under the circumstances. We are during a very sensitive holiday time for the Jewish, for the Muslims. We are under a very sensitive time internally in Israel. You just spoke about it. And so at the end, and I said many times on taking decisions, we look about everything as one strategic. We divide it to a very simple mechanism. Iran is above as giving the policy umbrella, exactly. Secondly, Hezbollah is the operative which coordinate between the sides, giving arms to Hamas, etc. You see the terror cabinet in Beirut 2 days ago sitting smiling together, but the detective and the most terror is done by Hamas. This is clear. And so Hamas in Gaza, Hamas in Lebanon. I'm very suspected that Hamas will try to be also partner in the Golan Heights, in the Syrian side. And in the West Bank, they are trying with incitement, and inside Israel using the east of Jerusalem. So meanwhile, Israel decided to take the point is towards Hamas, but we have an open, let's say, bill with Hezbollah, and we have to wait for the timing. We cannot close our eyes what's going from Hezbollah, from Megiddo Junction, the event, etc. But you have to be now smart, and at the end you have to be right. So we have to move it step by step. And I cannot not connect it to what's going interiorly. While you are opening a war or opening a clash with Hezbollah, means that you have to sit here with a unity nation. I know that in a lot everybody is coming, but the feeling, the energy should be moved in 30 degrees, and for it you need a time. And I think that, I hope that the Israeli Prime Minister will freeze the law process and declare about it, not to say it will come of the opening of the next Knesset, to make a process and bring the centralized that the security forces are needed. And also, we have also to see what's going about the time and the pressure on the heads of the security forces, especially in the police. The relationship between Ben Gvir, the Minister for Internal Security, and is the inspector of the police, are not giving the police the freedom and the positive energy to work. And at the end, I'm full honor to all the security forces that are acting for many weeks and months, and will do it for many weeks from now. And we needed to do it in a way. We are strong, but we need to bring the strongness to the timing that the reaction will be fast, clear, as we know to do it.
And speaking of that point exactly, Ben-Dror Yamini, we've been discussing almost on a daily basis what will happen in the moment of truth, given the nixing, or the axing rather, of Defense Minister Gallant, at the moment still very much in position, the mistrust within police forces, reservists saying they will not be there when time comes, and time has come. Is this friction and fraction we've seen in recent weeks undermining Israel's ability?
Speaking from the only security point of view, no, it's not. It's not. The point is that as General Dankot said, yes, he was completely right. I mean, we need the unity in this time. I mean, unity is power, unity is strength, and we don't have it right now. Right? We see the demonstrations, and we see that people complain.
And not just us.
And rightly so. And we see what happens that in the middle of a wave of terror, he is sacking the defense minister. I mean, excuse me, what are you doing? And so many people, unfortunate, but so many people cannot trust the prime minister. I mean, what is he doing? Because for so many years he was considered to be a political genius. Excuse me? Where is it? We are looking for it. We are looking for the genius, and we don't find in all his moves, one after one. All his moves are only doing damage to Israel. We have to admit it. We have a problem. But we are lucky. We are really lucky that we have a police and we have the army. And they are, I will not say that they are independent, but we have a defense minister that is trusted by the army. He cannot be sacked. And it should have been said before, sorry, in this time I'm totally postponing what I decided before to sack him. He did not say it, Netanyahu. We have a problem with Netanyahu. We do not have a problem with, not with the police and not with the Israeli army.
Yes, we're nearing the end of our broadcast, gentlemen. So briefly, on the security side of things, the security cabinet is set to convene tomorrow morning. Major General Dangot, are we to expect anything concrete?
I think that we are entering to a very sensitive 2 weeks. Let's make it very well. The last 10 days of Ramadan, which start in about 3 days, are very religious, very emotional, and can be a lot of opening a big fire. So it's need a lot of calculating steps, like maybe to prevent from Jewish to go to the Temple Mountain in these days, to not to make any kind of mistake, to strengthen the area. Yesterday, Nasrallah made a speech. He didn't say a word about what's going. Maybe he's waiting to the next ambush that will come from Lebanon. We don't know. We have to be on a high readiness to react. We have to make a quick lessons against Hamas. very sensitive time. A lot of the weight on the commanders of the police, IDF, interior security, and above all, we have deployment of thousands of soldiers, policemen, families, everybody. We have to make it as a state of Israel for our Independence Day that will take part, the 75th day will be it in a right way and to make it in a unity way.
And ahead of this big day that was on the security level and the political level, Ben-Dror Yemini, do you think it's an opportunity perhaps for a unity government?
Well, you know, too many of us are totally against it. I'm not sure that at the moment it's a bad idea, considering the fact that it will actually remove from the table the judicial reform. If it will happen, maybe. Why not? We are in an emergency time. I know that so many people telling Gantz, don't do what you did before, Benny Gantz.
Yes.
But it's not a bad idea, to my opinion.
Yeah, and reality proves that with the pace and scope and scale of the chain of events, many things can happen in a matter of days. Eitan Dangot, Ben-Dror Yemini, thank you very much for this. This is it for us.